No, I want to move over to Meet. I just got access to the thing. Yeah, it's on my laundry list.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, hi everybody. Mike Scavetta, I lead the working group. I run an open source security team at Microsoft, doing you do open source security. We do reviews. We write tools. We're kind of a organizational agitator on best practices and things like that. Amir.
Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. I'm Amir Montazeri from OSTIF, the Open Source Technology Improvement Fund. We specialize in securing projects through specialized security audits.
Jonathan?
Hi, my name is Jonathan Lechu. I am working at Gradle as a security software engineer. I am an open source security researcher. So open source security researcher, popularly known for a big vulnerability in Zoom, but also I do a bunch of stuff with CodeQL and finding security vulnerabilities in open source and part of the GitHub Security Lab stuff. I don't work for GitHub, but I do stuff under their bug bounty program. So that's me.
Cool. Adrian, welcome.
G'day, thank you, Michael. My name is Adrian Wood. I work for Wells Fargo. I'm the tech lead of their application incident response and research team. It's like a function of their red team. I've been doing that for too long now. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me. Particular interest in obviously, open source libraries, supply chain attacks. Really looking forward to collaborating with you all. Thank you.
Terrific. David?
David A. Wheeler, Linux Foundation. Next.
Dylan.
Hey everyone, my name is Dylan. No fancy titles yet, I suppose. I'm a senior studying electrical engineering and computer science at UC Berkeley, and I got interested in the open source security space interning with Mike last summer, and I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. Laurent?
Hey, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Yeah, I'm Laurent. I'm a security engineer at Google, and I'm part of the open source security team. So I'm here to see what I can learn from you guys.
Super. Luigi.
Hi, I am Luigi. I am security engineer at SmallPDF. It is a startup, and previously I have worked in Arduino, so an open source based company in Italy.
Cool. And Ryan.
Hey, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I'm driving. I'm Ryan, and I work for Microsoft Security Response Center, focused primarily on open source security. And that's it.
Cool. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. So, so I have kind of a good agenda, but I think we'll be able to get through it all because I'm optimistic right now. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to chat about was, so the high level things are the budget for the rest of 2021 and 2022, just final sync on the metric dashboard, and the security reviews site. And then remaining time, I wanted to float an idea, and this is like definitely not fully baked, but wanted to kind of get thoughts on whether this kind of thing made sense. So I'll start with the budget because we need to give, well, we already gave numbers, but I told them that we'd finalize them today. So what they're asking for, what the governing board is asking for, are what we think we'll spend on projects that we're associated with for the rest of 2021 and all of 2022. Obviously, the end of 2022 is so far out, I have no idea. So I'm trying to take a guess. Project hosting for security metrics, I think will run around $200 a month at most. That's without being kind of super careful and trying to keep it cheap. I think right now it's running like 140, but I know I'm getting some sort of an internal discount on Azure. So I think that's a reasonable a reasonable guess. But one of the things that we've talked about is software dev time to do things like work on the dashboard and make updates and more collectors and actually, someone who's dedicated to this and can put 40 hours a week into it. So what I was thinking is to put this at about 120K for the between now and the end of 2022 to basically do those things, make updates based off of what we decide, maybe new metrics calculators, new data sources, be there on the dev end of, if we talk to Chaos and we decide that there's some integration there that we want to do, kind of implementing that, improving the API and kind of turning this into a real thing. I think this is kind of, it's not super conservative. Like we might run out of that, but I also don't want to ask for like, 500K and then not be able to spend, a quarter of it. So does that sound reasonable at a super high level for security metrics? Are there any other?
I have a couple questions actually,
Yeah.
Michael.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you figured out the project hosting. You probably ought to point to here's where it is. Now, is that just for hosting or is that also to run tools to like run a bunch of static analyzers to collect data or something like that?
This is the cost for one reasonably sized VM and the storage to back that. So it's a reasonably, it's not a high-end machine by any means, but it should be enough to do whatever we need to do, aside from if we wanted to mass run static analysis on the universe, in which case, we need multiple more zeros there.
Okay, so that's just for hosting. Out of pure curiosity, why a VM? Why not a container?
Oh, because part of the 120K here would be to if we can migrate to a container and it's cheaper, that would be great too. Right now it is Dockerized, but I have the compose thing running in a VM. So if we can save $200 a month, that's great too. I don't want to. It's a rounding error relative to the other one. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay. So this is just, you probably ought to just make it clear. This is just hosting, not for deep analysis.
Yes.
Yeah. Perfect.
Cool.
Okay.
And then the 120K, what I was thinking is, that's probably a half-time, 20 hours a week for the duration, give or take, I think that's probably I don't know that we actually need 40 hours a week anytime soon. But
yeah, it's
this
hard
was
to
the number
estimate.
that
I get it. Yeah, it's hard to estimate that. I know.
Yeah. Cool. And then, but what I did want to do is and I'm not sure that this is the right heading for it, but I wanted to have a separate pool of money because I want to be able to in, October this year say oh, this thing would be really cool to explore. Let's explore this. It'll cost some money. And I don't want to have to go back and try to argue and get money from the pot. So I'd like to kind of have a not allocated, but a kind of semi-allocated pool that we can use for either experiments or things like this. And Amir, I know that obviously you play exactly in this space, and I'm not trying to mess with that. This was really off the top of my mind. I was like, well, what would be a fun experiment being? Could we do really cheap distributed security review bounties. Like, how can we increase the number of security reviews that we have done? I don't know if this makes sense or something else, but the point is to put about 75K extra in a pot that we can, I don't say use at our discretion, because that sounds like we're going to, buy a car. But, allocate towards interesting projects that we don't know right now what they would be.
Yeah, the way you describe it looks a whole lot like the kind of work that I'm expecting the critical projects work to do. Folks like OSTIF, and Amir's on the call, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
So Amir, I'm assuming that whatever reviews that you do for any of the other things will end up in some sort of report that we could then slap into security reviews, or at least a link to it. Is that your assumption as well?
That's correct. Yeah, we specifically bake that into the PR and media plan to include every review in the security reviews project repo, just to show that acknowledgement of both the supporters and acknowledgement of the work being done, and to populate the repo and show that this is work being done that people can point to. And I think Michael's proposal seems reasonable. You definitely want to have a pool of funds for projects, for experiments. And I mean, I know for a fact we could put that to good use if nothing is seeming like a good option, but I'm sure, having a pool of funds would certainly help. And we need all we can to drive the needle forward and get more people excited about security reviews and more organizations on board with them. So I think it's a reasonable proposal.
Yeah, I see that Michael's just switching it over to money to be used as determined. It's harder to object to that for sure.
Yeah.
Whether or not they say yay, I don't know, but
yeah, I mean, if I get even 25K, I'd be happy, because I feel like for experiments that can go a long way.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I would love to see more available for doing analysis, but I think I'm sorry.
What do you mean by doing analysis?
Like running a whole bunch of static analysis tools, or more fuzzing or something else. Fuzzing you have to really set up. You can't just run and go, but not practically. But I don't know how to estimate that.
Yeah. So the problem. So my experience. So here is that running the tools is actually really cheap. Even so we built a containerized version of CodeQL and a bunch of other tools. So we run these things across vast swaths.
Yeah.
And I think we're paying, I think it's like $300 a month, $400 a month, and we get about 500 scans a day out of that. So it's a reasonably good clip. We could expand, increase it and whatnot. The problem is you get all those results, you dump them in a pot, and now you have a pot of maybe bugs. And the analysis of the triage actually costs people time. And that's, the best you can do is tweak the rules so that they're less noisy or they're more actionable, but you still have to look at them with your eyes.
And that is a risk of putting them on the metrics, because in fact, just because there's a hit, in fact, over time, if you work on those, I mean, I'm not the first to observe this. If you work at stuff over time, pretty much after a while, all the reports are false positives.
Yeah. Well,
yay.
So as a potential experiment, what if we, gave, a batch of, I don't know, 100 static analysis results for a particular project to somebody, and they triaged them all and they said, these 60 are false positive, low value. These 3 are really, really interesting. And we gave them, and that took them, X amount of time, and we gave them Y amount of dollars for that. So it's kind of like a triage bounty. And the idea would be try that from this pool and see if that's effective.
Well, you can mention right here, we're discussing a triage bounty. I'm not sure exactly how it would work, But why don't you just mention it as a, maybe a triage bounty, and then we can keep talking about that. I'm not sure how that would work, but let's talk.
Yeah.
It might be really cool if we could figure out how to make that work.
I mean,
from experience, I've sat down with CodeQL's results and just scrolled through pages, and it took me 2 hours of scrolling through, an hour and a half worth of scrolling, and I found one remote code execution vulnerability in a pretty critical remote code execution vulnerability in a piece of software called Mongo Express. But it took, from experience, there's a lot of small projects out there. So also knowing which projects to look at to begin with is also really valuable.
Right. But also, if you look at the other way and you say, it only took you 2 hours to find a critical remote code execution vulnerability in Mongo Express, that's not bad.
That's fair. That's fair.
It
just required a lot of scrolling.
Well, good auto scroll.
Yeah, I've gotten used to it. Michael, I would suggest we move on for time. We've got a lot to cover today.
Yep. Okay. Metric dashboard. We are live at metrics.openssf.org.
Woo!
Woohoo! So we've been live for about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. This is the opening page. There are a few major projects like curl, Kubernetes, and Node that are always here. The other ones kind of change randomly, but each of these are projects that we've cataloged. So if I want to search for left. These are all the projects. So the project, the links here go to the dashboard. The links here go to the API.
Yep.
So Holman left, if you click that, this is the raw data that we've collected. If you go here instead, you can see the dashboard. The dashboard still has a couple bugs, which I will get fixed before the demo on Monday.
Famous last words. I wish you well.
I know.
We've all been there.
The point. So what we have here is data from the criticality score, best practices badge, scorecard, security reviews, and then high level stuff. If available, and the URLs that we've pulled out of things. So it all goes here. You can also just search, through there if you'd rather do that. Right now we have collected 106,000 projects, 2.6 million metrics. But you can see most of that is the criticality project. Indexed a ton of stuff, so that's where a lot of the data is coming from.
I like this display. Can you see that from the main dashboard, from the front?
I believe so. Yeah.
Is there a link to this from the front page? I didn't notice this.
No, I don't know. It's a good. Let me. So if you're on this page, I want to say that I put it over here. Yeah. So the hamburger menu.
Dashboard operations.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's not on the front when you first see it.
Which we could do. I mean, yeah. I'm not going to touch it now because it's Friday.
Good plan. I got that.
but yeah, we'll do something here where it's 106,000 and
yeah,
something like
Absolutely.
that.
I think the most important is that second paragraph.
Yes.
We are not done.
Yes. So that's that. So what I would ask everybody to do is play with it for 15 minutes. Be kind. Don't try to make it explode. But obviously, if you find any bugs or anything, please just open up an issue. And if it's the kind of thing that I can fix before Monday, I will. There was a blog post going out on Monday. That is this one. So I think this is already staged and just kind of ready to go. But obviously, if there were any, if you have any final comments, I will post this in the chat. I believe this one as well. We'll try to get them both out on Monday. This is for the security reviews that Amir wrote. So thank you again, Amir.
Mike, sorry, I just had a quick question. I was wondering about I'm not sure exactly how Grafana like versioning control kind of usually works, but do you think there's any way? Because I went through and I fixed a lot of the color coding, like a lot of just the more kind of aesthetic bugs because I knew it was presented soon. Like, is there any way we can like toss that JSON API in like somewhere in version control and Git? Because then I think it'd be easier for me or for everyone to be able to help out with these like just messing with the dashboard, so you don't have to do it all yourself or anything.
Yeah. So here's how you do it. If
it's already part of. Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah. So what happens? So in a dashboard settings JSON model. If you're logged in, you'll see this. If not, there's a Sherry menu thing up here. You go to that. You do export view JSON, and it should be the same content. This is the full. There's nothing, well, other than the data source connection, there's nothing else. So if you dump this in the repo, maybe create a folder or whatever, and dump it in, and we can do that. At the same time, though, for versions, every version is saved, so you can always go back.
Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, I always like freak out with Grafana because I feel like if something gets like, I didn't know how well they did version control. Okay, cool. So I will.
I mean, it's simple, but
wait. What? This is a version of what, Michael?
Of the dashboard definition.
I see. Okay, the basic, the UI. What I would call it, the UI.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So if I compare those, I should see.
Oh, look at that. All right, that's interesting.
JSON diff. Wow.
Oh, that's very cool.
That's really cool.
A little less stressful in case something like nuclear happens by accident.
Yeah.
It freaks me out in Grafana.
Yeah.
Cool.
And you know, it might actually even be easier for me just to create you an admin account on the Grafana, so you can just do it in the main thing, and then we're done. Because
whatever you're comfortable with, I'm totally happy to do it that way.
Okay. Let's just do that. And
so Michael, sometime we want, not before March. May 3, not. But sometime we ought to sit down and kind of walk through this dashboard of what to add, what to remove.
Yes.
I have no trouble with having an early alpha. Go for it. I love it. But we know that there's probably metrics we should add, and probably some of them are dubious or things that we could improve. So, yeah, we know we're going to be doing that kind of repeated stuff, so we should plan on doing it.
Yep.
I won't bring this up again because I've already talked about this in the previous meeting, but Michael, you and I should chat about how to measure anything in cybersecurity risk. I don't know if you've read that book, but let's chat about that after this meeting's over.
Yeah, I have to admit, I'm not sure how to apply that here, because I mean, you basically have to list out things. Their proposed approaches: identify the problems of your organization, probabilities, low and high costs, and for an individual project. I don't know how you would do that. I'm not saying that can't be done. It's just.
I mean, you could. Yeah, I mean, it's a good conversation. Let's have that conversation.
Yeah. Okay. The bigger thing that I want to capture here is like, great, we have all this data and we like kind of know what the risks are in these things. Like, do the numbers that we compute actually match the reality of like the projects that have been popped in the past and caused damage, right? Like, if we were to retroactively apply this data, would that have actually identified the things that were risky, that caused issues to organizations and companies and all that stuff?
Yeah, it's a good question.
I think it is a challenge to measure things in spite of the title of that book. But I think there's actually a simpler approach that may be a little easier to do, which is almost like that. Walk through known past problems and then ask what seems to be especially probable causes for that event. Does that make sense? So instead of trying to, now the risk with that, and the slight difference, is that you're not really comparing against all things. So, oh my gosh, somebody didn't review every line of code. Well, how many projects review every line of code? Well, very, very few. Well, then that's not really distinctive, is it? But nevertheless, if we could look and say, hey, this project, if you could find at least correlations, they're not causations, but they still make you suspicious. Oh, I see a hand up.
Hey, yeah, just on that note, I noticed you've got some notes in there about chaos. I've been using chaos in a related project to analyze post incidents to see if there was any of those kinds of trends. And one of the things that I noticed on that front is often when a package is taken over by an attacker, like if they get publishing rights, when they submit their nefarious code, the review time is extremely short because they just want to push it straight through to the main branch as soon as possible. So there's a lot of data there that I've noticed as giving that as one example where you can start to see some sort of like trends that an incident might be taking place. I hope
That's
that helps.
interesting. So would that appear in like the is that in Git history or is that just in GitHub?
Yeah, that data is coming from the Git history, I believe. And basically, if you're tracking a project's health, one of the data points that you're collecting is how long they take to review commits.
Yeah.
And the average seems to be for the projects that I've looked at might be, let's just call it 24 hours. But on the commit that contains nefarious code, it's abnormally short, like 15 minutes or less, because they just ran it straight through.
Okay, and abnormally short what?
It's an abnormally short review period.
Okay. All right. There's a paper called the Backstabber's Knife Collection. If you're looking for supply chain attacks in open source, it's one of the best survey papers. It's really the best survey paper I know of on the topic, and they identify some things we could look for. So
yeah, that's an excellent resource.
Yep. So I've now slipped that into the notes.
Nice. Cool. Okay. Luigi, you had a question on will the project be free for all? I would say yes. I can't imagine a scenario where we would want to charge for access to the metric. I'm assuming you're referring to the metric dashboard, right? Yeah, I can't imagine a scenario where we would charge for it. I don't want to be a business in this regard. If the costs are out of hand or like, I think we would have to explore other options on what this thing would turn into. So yeah, I would say for now, let's just assume it'll be free for all forever. And open source. So if somebody wants to run it themselves, I mean, so the nice thing about it right now is there's nothing. It's kind of I don't know the word to describe it. Maybe idempotent, where like if you spin up if you clone the repo and follow the install, a couple hours later you'll have an identical thing to what's running in production. So there's nothing. You can run it yourself, and that's fine too. We're just hosting it because it's convenient. I think once we add different collectors, that might be different. We might have something that like we keep history about that you wouldn't necessarily have, but I think it'll be fine. Okay.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah. Security reviews. I do want to think about how we're going to increase this number. I would like to get the blog out on Monday, so we'll just push and we'll get that all going. This was kind of the driver behind like, hey, could we just do like a crowdsourced bug bounty thing just to like increase the numbers? I also think, I mean, some of this is actually on me, so I would like to get make sure that other people have maintainer access to the repo where they can do merges and things like that. Because I feel like more and more of a bottleneck these days. So so we'll do that, and but yeah, we'll just try to get more reviews out there. I think some of it is because people don't know about it; they don't know to contribute. So cool.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, and we're really hoping that if we get the managed audit program off the ground, that's going to be a direct pipeline of, the full program will be around 40 plus research papers or reviews.
Nice.
So that's the goal. So hopefully
Nice.
we'll be getting that number up.
Cool. That's awesome. Cool. Yeah, and I have a little bit of a backlog that I want to publish out. So I'm gonna try to get that out today. It probably wouldn't be merged by Monday, but at least it'll be in the pipe.
Yeah. If you don't mind merging my pull request, because I cleaned my reviews up a little bit just so that it looks cleaner, and so I figured that would look good.
Let me do that right now, so that way if there's no Yep. Cool. And then I should do this because it's so this is the same. Oh, this is a new.
Yeah, so I added one, and then I cleaned up all the other ones.
Perfect.
to be consistent.
Cool. Done.
Yay! Thank you.
Cool. Yep. Okay. So yeah. So on Monday, hope everybody's going to make the town hall. We've got a bunch of stuff, including as I'll talk a little bit about the metric dashboard and security reviews. So it will be officially public Monday at whenever the blog goes out. So I guess like 10 or 11. I know David's talking a bunch about recent events like CodeCov and dependency confusion and the University of Minnesota. No, Minnesota or Michigan, sorry. UMN. Minnesota stuff. So it'd be a good conversation. Adrian, I see your hand still up, but I think it's just up from before. But if not.
Yes, it is. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. No, it's all good.
I didn't realize I had to do that. My bad. Don't normally use Teams.
My hand must be tired.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't believe you ignored me this long.
Okay, so before I get into this, I feel like this will just suck up the rest of the air. Does anybody have anything else that they wanted to talk about today? Cool. Okay, so reproducible.openssf.org. And really, what I'm looking for here is this is a terrible idea. This is an idea that somebody else has already there's so many dead bodies on the hill from trying to do this. Don't even try it. Or it's a great idea. No one else has thought of this, or somewhere in the middle. I'm not going to feel bad if this is a terrible idea. So one of the main challenges that I've seen expressed is that when you get a package from NPM or NuGet or PyPy or any place else, you have no guarantee that the package has any semblance or any resemblance to the source code that it claims to be from. And often the package itself is less, it's harder to reason about the security of the package than it is to reason about the security of source code. And you could make the reverse argument as well, and I've had people do that as well, but my feeling is that source code is easier to analyze than minified, obfuscated, or binary bits. And there aren't today prevalent publishing pipelines that say, okay, I give this to the trusted party that takes my source code, checks out this tag, does a build and then publishes for me. And you could set this up yourself, but most packages don't do that. So if you just given a random npm package, you have to trust that it came from the source that was associated with it. And I was thinking, well, wouldn't it be interesting to test that out? Take a random npm package, find the source code, and try to reproduce the package from the source code. And it doesn't have to be like bit for bit exact match, but at least show the diff and point out where the diff is interesting. Are there like different commands in the package that aren't anywhere in the source? Or is it just like version number increments because the author forgot to do a thing? Are there additional files in the package that aren't in the source code? Are there certainly there should be files in source code that aren't in the package, like documentation and stuff like that. But like kind of drawing that out. So what I was imagining was a website that you go reproducible.openssf.org. You type npm left pad and you see perfect, matches exactly. And then you type npm or py foo, and you see this thing only has like a 47% correlation. There's all sorts of other stuff here. We can't build it. Or you do zlib and you're like, I can't even find what compiler zlib used here, so I can't even attempt this. Or we tried 12 different compilers and we found the right version of the compiler to produce the same binary output. Or whatever the output is, and we can make that process kind of smarter over time. The biggest question is like, other than like, would this provide any value? Like, would people use this? Would this be helpful? Because the natural argument that I would have against this is yes, but you still don't know if the source code is any good. So all you've determined is that you don't have the case where the source code is benign, but the package is evil.
That's actually still incredibly valuable. We've already had a number of attacks where indeed, in fact, the recent CodeCov nonsense was specifically because what was downloaded and run was not what was posted on GitHub. And that's not even the first or second or 20th. It's actually a fairly, it's not, the most common attack is typo squatting. But once you eliminate typo squatting, this is already a legit serious problem. So let me first of all let me answer your question. 2 thumbs up for me.
Okay.
I think this is very, very sensible. I quickly typed in some comments on the notes. You can buy it or not. But I think what we ought to do, if we're going to do this, we should focus on language level repos. And I have Python and JavaScript and so on. And I have a reason for that. The reproducible builds project is already doing this for Linux distros.
Yes.
And in fact, near the bottom, if you click on that link, you will see that a large number of Linux distros are already working on this with it's very hard to get 100% of all packages. There's always a couple, but especially on big ones like Debian, where, it's just, it's just hard to fix that last 1%. But they're over, some of these folks are over 99% reproducible for their packages given, or at least reproducible in a variant, and they're working on getting the variant into their mainstream. But I don't know about the language level repos. I don't think most of them were doing this at all. Can anyone contradict me? I'd be delighted to be contradicted.
I know that, again, I second reproducible builds as well. There's been a lot of talk about it. We've talked about it in securing critical projects as well, and with our contact, Chris Lamb, who I believe is doing that currently.
Yes, he leads the reproducible builds project. He's also a former Debian project leader.
Yes. So I don't know a ton about it in terms of the details of it, but I know that a lot of people are advocating for it. And from my experience, it can also lead to fixing security bugs, and just by making something reproducible, you find a lot of problems and things that have been around for a long time.
So
Yeah,
so
that's true too.
it would be great to get, you know, I'll well, actually, Amir, do you know Chris personally, or?
I do, yeah. I can we can try and get him in to speak at one of our meetings.
Yeah, that would be terrific.
yeah.
Even if we have
Okay.
to move it around for him. Yeah, because so I guess the main question then is, would reproducible? Well, the fundamental question is, does reproducible builds require each project to do something? In which case, it might be really hard to get the open source ecosystem to, as a whole, to do that. Or is it?
It does.
You know, 70%. It does. Okay.
Okay, well, how's this? I can tell you for sure that for the compiled languages, think C in particular, typically yes. Now, I don't know about Python, JavaScript. I mean, it's not, I'm no stranger to these languages, but I've not tried to do a lot of reproducible builds there. Typically, there's several problems, though. You've got to force orders in some places where the tools don't force an order and leave them random. And usually there's date problems. You know, if dates timestamps get embedded, you know, guess what?
But still, I would say even there, if the differences are like you could have a fuzzy compare that like doesn't care about differences in dates, or I guess even orderings. I don't know how hard that would be to actually do, but
hint, it's hard.
You know.
Been there, tried that. Yeah, it turns out as soon as you leave the nice, pleasant world of bit for bit equality, life can get hard. Date timestamps actually aren't too bad, but a lot of that other stuff can get hard in a hurry. But you know what? I would say don't kill the idea anyway, because once you have a tool suite that automatically does the checking, even if today a minority of packages do it, actually succeed, first you'll know which ones are succeeding, and now you're giving visibility into which ones aren't. Now I'll tell you a way that you can make your life simpler. The reproducible builds folks have already built a debug tool. Debug tool is probably the wrong term. It's called Diffoscope.
Oh yeah, Diffoscope. Yep.
You know, so basically, and I added this to the bottom of the notes. When you're done with the reproducible builds, one thing you could do, maybe as a separate run or something, is if they're not equal, run Diffoscope and make it easy for somebody to see what the differences were.
Right.
Because then, even if you can't completely automate the, hey, it's equal, it's really the equivalent same thing, it's just not bit for bit, you would at least give a human a chance at seeing what the differences are. And one thing that human might be a package maintainer who might fix it, and then and then it would be reproducible.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so I think that the next step here is to LAMM, I think.
LAMB. I mean, he's already spoken once, but I suspect he say, "Hey, different working group." We're all talking about this guy. I don't think he'll mind too much talking about reproducible builds. So, you know, having him back for another round, I don't think will kill.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting just to see, because I mean, ideally, it would be great to expand the concept of reproduciblebuilds.org to include reproducible builds for everything, not just Linux things. So, you know, actually contribute back into that project.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd be happy with that too. But the whole, but you know, I don't think that these are in conflict, by the way, because what the reproducible builds folks is they point off to different projects which are trying to reproduce. I showed the link there. If reproducible OpenSSF org reproduce some packages for some language ecosystems, I suspect that they would go and link to it.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So if you
so it's really in the details on like how that integration happens.
Yeah. I mean, I think they do run some, but I mean, we could certainly talk to him and see, hey, what can be done? Yeah, they list there. By the way, just FYI, my PhD dissertation, although it wasn't on reproducible builds, was on something related. So I have way too much experience in trying to get things reproduced. It turns out it's harder for compilers for technical nasty reasons.
Yep. Very cool. That's the end of what I have to talk about. Anything else, anybody?
No, but let me rewind back. May 3rd is the town hall. I mean, we've had several town halls, and so I don't know how many people will come to the next one. But in the upcoming town hall, really the feature event, the cool thing really is the stuff from this working group. So. And I notice, and I'm grateful that you had slides that did screen captures from the.
There will be no live demos.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I am not a fool.
You have already encountered the demo gods.
Fool me twice.
Press S to spit on the demo gods. Yes, I appreciate it. All right. Yeah, and I put in the chat note about we have talked about creating a new reproducible builds working group, but that hasn't happened. So, so I will add that to the notes.
Cool. And actually, so particularly for David, you and Ryan, there's a chat that we had at the very beginning about the package manager summit that we did. I don't know, somewhere in the before times, that I think everybody thought was very useful and important, and spinning up an OpenSSF working group for the package managers themselves. So having NPM, GitHub, PyPy, Gradle, Maven, everybody there, and kind of sharing and talking would be very, very high ROI for the community. I'm not sure what it would like. I think it's probably more of a governing board or TAC decision and like program to go out and like make happen. But I've heard it a couple times now, and I think it would be super important to explore.
All right, OpenSSF Critical Projects Working Group.
Oh yeah, I guess that's probably.
Yeah, I'm right now looking through their. Unfortunately, I don't know which date the presentation was on.
Okay.
So.
Oh yeah, for the original reproducible builds.
Yeah, well, there's a reproducible builds presentation to the Critical Projects Working Group, but I don't know which meeting that was.
I think it was February 11th.
Ooh, all righty, and let's see here. Oh, I don't see that. February 11. I see February 25. Aha! And you know what? Here, I got it. It's a YouTube link. I will embed the link.
Nice.
Here we go. I think it was recorded. It was recorded.
Yep. Perfect.
All right. So those of you who aren't familiar with reproducible builds, before we even reach out to Chris, we could take a peek at that video.
Yep.
And we could still invite him. I am sure he'd be happy to talk. But at that point, we can say, we already watched your video. We have questions.
Yes. That would be even better. Cool. So sorry. Working group. The concept of a working group for the package managers themselves. Do you think that's something that the Critical Projects Working Group should drive, or governing board, or TAC? Like who do you think who do you think that we should talk to in order to advocate for that conversation to happen?
So we can bring it up at the TAC meeting. I'm not sure that the securing critical projects is really the right group to drive it per se, because they've got a few other topics that they're dealing with. But yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely useful. And I don't know if it's really even a working group or just, you know, a forum that, you know, we sort of host to have people, you know, come in and have these conversations. But yeah, I'll definitely add it to the next.
Okay.
TAC
Yeah.
meeting.
So just to be clear, what I was really thinking is just I get a forum is probably the right word for it. But something where NPM can learn from PyPy and Gradle can share knowledge with, you know, NuGet. And so when they're like, well, God, what are you seeing? Like, oh yeah, we keep getting hit by this same IP address in wherever. They can be like, oh, great, thanks for sharing. We can all like protect the overall ecosystem together. And it doesn't even need to, like, it could be insular from the rest of OpenSSF, because I would want them to be able to share things privately. Amir, you're on mute if you're talking.
Just thinking out loud, sorry.
Yeah, so I think that would be, I think it's important to have that forum for everybody's sake.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Like I said, I'll add to the meeting. We'll figure out, you know, the right way to drive that. But
perfect.
Really, really cool idea.
Cool. Awesome. We have a minute left. Any last thoughts? Wonderful. Thank you all very much. I appreciate your time. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you guys on Monday, hopefully.
Excellent.
Good weekend,
Looking
everyone.
forward to it.
Thanks so much.
Bye. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye, Luigi.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.